And it looks like I'm live. Awesome. Great win for the Jazz. Let me just lead with that. To be fair, the Lakers were a little bit injured. Obviously, Anthony Davis was out, and Dennis Schroeder was out as well. So this was not the Lakers at full strength. If the Lakers are healthy in the playoffs and the Jazz face them, it'll be a much different outcome. Luckily, the rest of the NBA schedule was released, and the Jazz play the Lakers twice in a row, kind of towards the end of the season. It's not like right at the end, but it's we have to wait a little bit before that happens. So hopefully the Lakers are healthy at that point, and we can get a little, and hopefully the Jazz are healthy, so we can see a kind of 2-game series in the regular season against the Lakers. But obviously, with what we saw from the Lakers, even though they were a little beat up, the Jazz are just a far superior team. And the Lakers, they were just sloppy. They weren't energized. Their defense was nowhere to be seen, which is awesome because for the Jazz, because just adding Anthony Davis and Dennis Schroeder is not going to be a big enough add to the Lakers defense to make up for what we saw from the Lakers defense tonight. So the Jazz just wrecked them. The Lakers were awful. It was everything a Jazz fan could dream of, right? Another cool thing is just LeBron James, he was the highest scorer out of all players, and he only had 19. So that means that the Jazz just beat up the Lakers on a team level. I don't know, they watching the Jazz offense, it flowed. They kept the ball spaced. They got great shots. They made 22 threes as a team, and the Lakers defense just didn't know what to do. There was a while there where they were just exploiting lobs to Rudy Gobert. So, the Lakers couldn't do anything defensively. They had no energy. And then offensively, they had a couple good possessions, and that's about it. But crazy game. That was awesome. Loved it. And I think a lot of people are going to be saying, yeah, the Jazz are great. They're an awesome team, but they beat the Lakers when they weren't healthy. And then when they played the Clippers, they lost them when the Clippers were healthy. But I don't think that tells the full story. And from what we saw as the whole Lakers team, just adding the players that they missed wouldn't probably the Jazz probably still would have beat them with how bad the rest of the team played. So great game for the Jazz. I'm excited. I'll jump into the stats real quick. I'll try to be quick because we have a lot that we can talk about, and the chat is already blowing up because that was an awesome game. So I'll be quick on the stats. Leave any comments you have about the game, any questions you have about the game. All-Star reserves were also released since our last stream. So any questions, comments you have about that, we can talk about that. And I did look over the schedule that was released. The rest of the schedule was released. I don't have a ton of comments on it. It's just kind of games. There were some interesting ones. At one point, the Jazz played the Grizzlies 3 times in 4 games, but that's the Grizzlies, not a huge thing. So leave any comments about that. I can talk about the schedule. I don't know if I'll give great insights on it yet. I haven't dug too far into it, but I'll go through the team stats, the box score. In the meantime, you guys can blow up the chat, and then I'll get to it right after that. And yeah, it'll be fun. So I'll be quick with this, though. Team stats, it's just the Jazz beat the Lakers at everything. They beat them field goal percentage by 7%. They crushed them in 3-pointers. The Lakers were awful from the 3-point line. They shot 24% compared to the Jazz, almost 46%. The Jazz made 22 threes, which, how they started, they hit 14 in the first half. So I was kind of hoping the Jazz could go break that franchise record and get 30 threes and just break it 2 games in a row. They tied it last game and then break it again, or actually break it this game. Yeah, the Jazz played awesome team basketball. The Lakers this is what happens when the Jazz play a defense that plays as bad as the Lakers, is they get a ton of assists. They had 28 assists, and the Lakers just couldn't do anything. The Jazz ball movement was great. The Jazz had 12 turnovers, which is kind of on par for them. Any more than that, and I'm not happy, but 12, I'll live with, especially when the Lakers have 14 turnovers. So yeah, and the largest lead for the Jazz was 29 points compared to the Lakers 4. So I don't know, like team stats just show that like if you were to take the team names off of this and just look at the team stats, you would assume that the Jazz were playing like the Jazz were one of the best teams in the league, which they are, and they were playing some scrub team, which is how the Lakers played tonight. Um, I'm not expecting them to continue playing like this, continuing on in the season and in the playoffs. I'll expect a better team. And honestly, I'm hoping the Lakers start to play a lot better because I don't want them slipping past the 3rd seed. Because then if the Jazz lock up the 1st seed and then they have to play the Lakers before the conference finals, that's probably the toughest route. So I hope the Lakers turn it around soon, but I'm happy the Jazz won. I'll go over box real quick and then the chat is exploding, so I might be on the chat on the stream might last a long time, which is awesome. Also, one thing I saw, so Shaq Harrison, I forget how we picked him up, whether it was a trade or something, but we picked him up in the offseason, but the Jazz waived him. I was kind of sad to see that. He just didn't get much playing time, and that's how it works when your team's playing really good and you're at the end of the bench. So if you have any thoughts on that, some people are kind of talking about like, oh, this opens up a roster spot. Maybe they're trying to sign a free agent like Isaiah Thomas, or maybe they're trying to make a trade. I think it was just more of a luxury tax move just so they wouldn't have to pay as much. But if you guys have any thoughts on that, like leave it in the comments and we can get into talking about what that might mean for the Jazz, that waiving of Shaq Harrison. But the box score, like I said, LeBron James led all scorers on both teams with 19 points. The Lakers had 3 players in double digits, and Morris, James, and Harrell off the bench. Like no one really played good. The Lakers did have Taylor Horton Tucker play, or not play but start, which was kind of an interesting move on their part. He didn't play good. The Jazz defense was too much for him. The Jazz, on the other hand, had 6 players in double digits, and Clarkson, Favors, Mitchell, Conley, Gobert, and Bogey. And it was just an awesome team game. Like Mitchell, he came out and he was not like he kind of got on a roll later in the game, and by that point the Jazz were up by a ton and he was taken out. So then that's why he only scored 13 points. But his shots weren't falling. Like the Lakers did a pretty good job at the beginning to force him into tough shots, but then after that, he just couldn't find his rhythm. Even good shots weren't falling for him. But what's awesome about that is he went and he impacted the game in other ways. He went and got 10 rebounds. He had 8 assists. And he didn't shoot great. He was 4 for 16, but that's what I want to see out of Mitchell. He was out there. He was leading the team. He was acting as their leader. And even though his shots weren't falling, he kept taking shots when he thought they were good shots, and he found other ways to impact the game. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the stats. I'll scroll back up to the top of the chat, and yeah, let's do this. If you haven't liked the video or the stream, like it. It helps more people hop on here, and the more people on here, the more people are chatting, the more fun this is. So make sure you like it. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. We talk about the Jazz here, so if you're a Jazz fan, you need to subscribe. We do a post-game review like this after every game, and then a few other videos during the week. Typically one, sometimes we had 2 if there's been an eventful week. So, yeah, first comment, Matthew says the Jazz are the best team in the NBA right now. I can't argue that. They've been playing like the best team. They've been beating the best teams by double digits. Granted, some of their wins have been against injured teams, but that's not the Jazz's fault, and they've still come out to play. So I feel like that is one team that may have the Jazz's number. The good news is they're in the Eastern Conference, so maybe another team can knock them off before. If the Jazz make it to the finals before they make it to the finals, but still, I'm excited to see how that plays out. Nate said not having AD was a big difference, but what else could you really want from the Jazz tonight? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Yeah, like the Jazz played amazing, and with how good the Jazz were playing, like it would definitely have been a closer game, and it may have come down to the wire with Anthony Davis. But with how the Jazz were playing and with how the Lakers were playing, like I was saying, I don't think Anthony Davis is a big enough difference maker to make the Jazz lose this game. Um, yeah, and at, so Sawyer says we bullied LeBron right under that. Francis says it looks like LeBron doesn't want to be there. Feel sad for him. It's true. Like there's that watching LeBron tonight reminded me of back when he was on his first year with the Lakers when he had Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball and all of them on the team. And there's some times where he's just like you could tell he was just done with everything and he was upset with the team. And I was seeing that look with him tonight. There was one point in the third and kind of beginning of the fourth where he tried to kind of kickstart a run, try to get everyone energized. And it worked for like 2 plays. And then the Jazz had like 2 defensive stops and then 2 great scores on the other end. So it's just the Jazz were playing too good for LeBron to even try to kickstart the other team. So, yeah. And LeBron James, he didn't play a ton of minutes. He was only at 28. Normally he's like high 30s. So I think he played good. He was 7 for 13 from the field. It's just no one around him was giving him anything to work with, which is kind of rough. Especially when you're playing a team like the Jazz where everyone on the Jazz is giving you something and has that energy. Source says Donovan is going to be in the 3-point contest. They said, yeah, I heard that. I mean, like before the season, if you told me Donovan Mitchell was going to be in the 3-point contest, I or asked me the odds, I would have said like 0. Because I haven't thought of Donovan Mitchell as a 3-point shooter up until this season, and he's been killing it. So I'm excited to see how he does. That'll be fun. If he wins it, that would be awesome. I haven't looked at who else is in there, but I wouldn't expect Donovan to win it because I don't think he's as much of a sharpshooter as whoever else they have, whether it's Joe Harris or Seth Curry, or I'm guessing they have people like that in there. And I would take Seth Curry over Donovan Mitchell in a 3-point shootout. I want to see or Orbidex. I want to see. It says I want to see the Jazz box score with 8 in double-digit scoring. That'd be crazy. It's possible. We had 6 tonight. We didn't really, other than those 6, we didn't have anyone who was close to double digits. But I don't know. Nyang hits another 3, another couple shots. O'Neal hits another couple shots, and then we would have been there. And Nyang had some good threes. They just didn't fall. O'Neal he only shot 4 shots and he made 2 of them. So he would have had to be perfect in order to get double digits tonight. But it's like we're not too far off. So that would be crazy to see one of these games. And okay, there we are. Yeah, the Jazz are the best team in the NBA. Some Lakers suck. So I came to Utah like right in the when I moved to Utah, it was right in the middle of like Darren Williams, Andre Karolinko, Carlos Boozer, like that team, and there was a huge rivalry between the Lakers and the Jazz because the Lakers were really good. They had the Kobe Bryant. I think Pau Gasol was on the team right around the time I moved. So the Lakers were contending for a championship, and that Utah Jazz team was the closest that the Jazz got to a championship since the 90s, since with Stockton and Malone. So since then, though, like Lakers have fallen off, Jazz have fallen off a little bit. Now, obviously, both teams are good again. So does that like for everyone who's on the chat? I'm guessing y'all are all pretty hardcore Jazz fans. So do you still hate the Lakers from those days, or like even when both teams were bad, do you not care, or is it every time you play the Lakers does it matter a little more? Is that still a heated rivalry for you guys? Like, let me know in the chat. Ballin' All Day says, "What a win! I know they were without AD and Schroeder. I don't know how to spell Schroeder, but I agree. Like, awesome win, and it's like I feel like a lot of times the Jazz are playing teams and we're saying, "Oh, like that team missed this player," and that's something the Jazz can't control. And so it's like maybe that's the reason why they're winning so much, but still, you look at how they play and add those players in, and maybe it turns a couple of the games, and maybe the Jazz are a 2 seed instead of a 1 seed right now. But with how the Jazz are playing, I think they're legitimately good enough that any team full strength on a good night, the Jazz still have an awesome chance to beat any team in the league. So, especially with how they were playing tonight, um, yeah, and I kind of feel like if Anthony Davis was playing, even though Donovan Mitchell kind of had an off night, he would have found a way to turn it on because it would have mattered more. So, that's the other things to factor in, that adding Anthony Davis doesn't only boost the Lakers, it also changes a little bit how important certain shots are for Donovan Mitchell and other Jazz players. Um, Rocker Chick says, I hope they're looking at the free agent list as we speak. Is that um, is that referring to the Jazz looking to sign a new player, or the Lakers looking to sign players to help them out, because obviously they need some sort of help? Um, Let me know. I'm guessing it was some sort of context in what I was saying when you typed that out, but um, yeah. Uh, yeah. And the Lakers, this was their fourth loss in a row. Obviously, Anthony Davis is going to be out for a little bit. I think they're expecting Schroeder to come back and pretty soon. I may be wrong about that. Um, but I don't know. Like the Lakers need to do something. Um, I don't know. There's actually some okay free agents out on the market. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers figure out something. I think they have a full roster, so they'd have to waive someone, but figure something like that out. Also, there's been rumors that like players like Blake Griffin or Andre Drummond or even Kevin Love might be waived. I don't think Kevin Love would be. I still think he has good trade value, so I think it'd be stupid to waive him at this point. Um, but I don't know. Maybe the Lakers are going to pick up one of those players. And DeMarcus Cousins, he was waived, but it doesn't look like he'll go to the Lakers. So I don't know. I don't know if what the Lakers are thinking about doing. I don't know what they think they need, because obviously they they need something just in case Anthony Davis gets hurt. Like they're not going to make it through a playoff round if Anthony Davis is hurt in the playoffs. So, but this isn't a Lakers show. We don't need to talk more about that. Um, yeah, the Jazz kept James to 19 points, and I I don't know if that was so much that the Jazz limited LeBron James to 19 points. I think it was more LeBron James didn't play a ton of minutes and he wasn't shooting as much as he could. I think he realized that he wasn't going to beat this Jazz team because how good they play it as a unit. So he was trying to get his team involved, and that didn't work. Um, and if they played LeBron James more minutes, like because he's normally like 35, 38 plus minutes, we would have seen him score his normal like 25 points at that point. Um, Nate says, what Davis would have done is make it harder for Gobert to take over the paint in the third quarter. And AD is a big reason why the Lakers are the number one defense in the league. That's true. And that's true. And like Anthony Davis is one of those players like Rudy Gobert where it's tough to account for everything that he does do, both on the offensive end and defensive end. At the same time, though, uh, and I agree, it would have been a much closer game if Anthony Davis was playing. Just and obviously it's tough to account for because Anthony Davis is playing. The other players may have more energy throughout it, but just seeing how everyone else was playing and who the Lakers gave minutes to, the Lakers really don't have a ton of great perimeter defenders. Like Taylor Horton Tucker, he can't really defend very well. Caldwell Pope can't defend very well. Obviously, LeBron James is a really good defender, but he kind of turns it on and off. So, and then coming off the bench, like with how the Lakers match up against the Jazz, the The big thing is how well do the Jazz contain LeBron? And this is talking if the Lakers are healthy. How well do the Jazz contain LeBron, and how much of a difference? How like can Anthony Davis kind of negate Gobert's defensive? Like can he pull him out of the paint so it's easier for the Lakers to score in the paint? But at the same time, looking at the Lakers defense, I don't know. I'm really excited to see the teams, both of them, play healthy, because I'm sure the Jazz are still going to score a ton of points. I can't see the Lakers defense shutting down the Jazz ball movement around the perimeter. May make it a little harder, granted, with Anthony Davis in the post. But yeah, like with both teams healthy, I would imagine it would be a much higher scoring game than we saw tonight. Would be my guess. I may be wrong. It may be more of a defensive just bruiser. Rocker Chick says the Lakers look lost, and the Statue of Liberty, Marc Gasol in the middle has got to go. Yeah, there is one play where I thought Marc Gasol made an awesome play defensively, and it turned out it was actually just a foul on Gobert, and it wasn't called. And that was the time where Gobert got called for the technical. The first time I saw it, though, it looked like Marc Gasol blocked him clean, and I was like, okay, like Marc Gasol still has like that defensive ability, but other than like, and it was actually a foul. It should have been a shooting foul. So yeah, Marc Gasol needs, like, he's not the player he used to be. He's not going to be anchoring the post, obviously, because if he could anchor the post like he used to be able to, missing Anthony Davis wouldn't have been as huge of a loss on the defensive end as it was tonight. So he did hit a three. What else did he do statistically? Where is he? So he had 8 points. So he did pretty much nothing. He had 2 rebounds. He had a block. That block they probably counted that, and that was the foul that he got. So 8 points, 2 rebounds, a block, and a steal. Yeah. If the Lakers want to win games and they're expecting Anthony Davis to be out for a while, you need someone like Marc Gasol to step up on the defensive end. Let's see. Weston says, let's ask questions so this will go forever. Like, you know what? Like, if you guys keep asking questions, I'll keep going for it. But make sure they're good quality questions, so I have something to talk to about it. And the scroll, just like the chat, I think you guys have heard Nate and I both complain about the scrolling on the chat, but randomly it will scroll me like way to the bottom when I'm in the middle, so I have to ramble like I am right now, trying to find where I left off so I don't miss anyone's question. Because I feel bad when I miss your questions, especially when it's a good question or comment. So Nate says Utah has one of the easiest second half schedules, 55 wins. Here we come. And I'm excited for the schedule, because looking at it, there seems to be some good stretches of beatable like teams, and it's just like there's a while, and at the end it seems pretty solid, which is nice. Like as far as beatable teams, which is nice, because that means the Jazz can kind of rest their stars, limit their minutes. When they're ahead by 20 with 10 minutes to go, they can kind of rest their stars more, get them ready for playoffs without resting them completely, still giving them that game time. But there are some like tough stretches. Obviously, they're playing some tough teams at some parts of that schedule. So I'm excited for that, because I feel like I haven't really seen many teams that I feel confident can actually challenge the Jazz. And so if the Jazz can make it through the whole season, hopefully the rest of the teams they play are healthy, because I want to see teams who can challenge the Jazz to kind of gauge how good they are. But if it goes through the regular season, there's no team that can actually do that, because it feels like a lot of their losses have been more flukes than actually like if they play this team, it'll be like they'll have a really tough time beating them in a 7-game series. So I'm excited for the schedule, and it is nice, and I think it is beneficial for the Jazz come playoff time. So at the same time, I want to enjoy the season as much as I can without focusing too much on playoffs. But honestly, like I felt kind of antsy for the playoffs because that is the most exciting time of the season, and hopefully we can see some awesome stuff from the Jazz this year. Um, let's see. Yes, so Donovan, he's in the 3-point contest. Lakers are totally lost. Let's see. Now people are arguing over who subbed first to our channel. Um, and by the way, we're still under 500 subs. We're trying to get there before the All-Star break. So if you make it before 500, that's still pretty early on in the channel. So it's not too late to be on the I like calling sports before it was cool list. CDC says don't skip this question. Um, can it be one of your Saturday topics? I'm realizing good with my analysis and stats. We will. So Nate and I, we've actually been. We're not ready to announce anything yet, but we will. We've been thinking of ways that we can involve you guys more in Saturday videos, because the stream is fun because we can interact just live right here, and so we've been brainstorming that. Obviously it's going to be impossible to get everyone on there. So, but if you're interested and you want to kind of be involved in Saturday videos, let us know, reach out to us. And we're trying to figure out a way to make it possible for you guys to be more involved in it in one way or another. And we're trying to figure out a way that we can do that for more people. So stay tuned. If you're more interested in that kind of stuff, like let us know and we'll figure out a way to reach out to you. But yeah, we have been thinking about that. And Nate kind of covered in the comments. He said, reach out to us. There's our email. So that's probably the easiest way. If that is something that you want to do and kind of be involved in a Saturday video in one way or another, email us at calledbanksports@gmail.com. So Carter says, wondering who watched it on ESPN. Did the Jazz get any credit? Yeah, I was watching it on ESPN. Like obviously there's a lot of Lakers stuff because like when it's nationally televised, they plan a lot of the commentary of what they're going to say during small breaks. And there's just as far as for a nationally televised game, there's a lot more interest in what's going on in Los Angeles than in Salt Lake City. But like towards the beginning, the announcers were kind of like even kind of leaning towards the Lakers, talking about how great LeBron James is. But then towards the end, it was like I felt like they almost ran out of compliments to give to the Jazz because that's all they could talk about. So I do feel like they were giving a lot of credit to the Jazz, and they were saying, like at one point, Mark Jackson, he said, yes, this team is definitely capable of winning a championship. And he did kind of, after that, he said that he wasn't picking them to win, but he's like, this is definitely a championship caliber team. So it is cool to see more of the like ESPN analysts and the national media kind of give the Jazz credit that all of us think they deserve. We think the Jazz are legit the best team in the NBA right now. Dante said, yeah, Dante, big win. Maybe we'll get some national coverage. I hope so. I hope like the tough part is Mike Conley. He didn't have a great statistic like game in the box score, but what he did and like he just kind of got the Jazz started. He kickstarted them at the beginning, and if there's any sort of injury or anything going on that leads an all-star not to be able to play and they're looking for an extra one, I'm really hoping that they look Mike Conley's way. And maybe a big win against the Lakers will just generate enough buzz that it makes it easier for Mike Conley to actually make it as an all-star reserve if some sort of injury pops up before the all-star game. I know that's a long shot, but anything helps in this case. So Weston says, so me and my younger sister went to a Jazz game on the front row, and she got Donovan's jersey. It is so cool. That is pretty sweet. And one thing that I love about Donovan Mitchell is like I feel like those are superstars where like they're awesome on the court, but they're not great for the community. Or they don't like you don't really feel the love back from them as you're rooting for them for a fan. But Donovan's like the complete opposite. He like you can tell his goals, his larger goals in life are to help out people. Um, he relates to the community well. He does stuff like that. So um, that's another reason why I think Donovan Mitchell is just an awesome player and like superstar on and off the court. Nate says thoughts on picking up DeMarcus Cousins as a third string center just in case Gobert or Favors gets hurt. Um, I don't like it. Um, I've been thinking because there are some decent free agents on the market, and I've been thinking about like who the Jazz might want to add. I heard Isaiah Thomas get brought up. Obviously DeMarcus Cousins is available. The tough part with adding a player to this team is it's like this team, like they have such a good chemistry and they play so well on the court and just everyone's bought in that I almost feel like before they sign anyone, they'll want to put him through like 5 rounds of interviews to make sure he'll fit with the team, just because they won't want to mess anything like that up. DeMarcus Cousins, I still like he hasn't played great this year, and he was getting decent minutes, but he still has talent. He can do stuff. So as far as on the court, I'm sure he could figure it out. But I almost feel like if we need to rely on him, he'd end up getting injured anyway, because that's kind of been the story of his career. And he's kind of like his reputation is he's not great in the locker room. I do think he's gotten better as he's become more of a veteran player. He's no longer the superstar that he was. I don't love it, and I don't think the Jazz will look at that, but it is something interesting that we can kind of yeah, it's always fun to think about a big name signing like that. Like even though DeMarcus Cousins isn't the player he was, he's still a big name in the NBA for fans who have been fans for like more than 5 years. Sources: if the Jazz get a chance to get LeBron, we should not take it. He is the ball hog. I don't like. First off, I don't think the Jazz will get a chance to get LeBron. I can't see that happening realistically, and I don't like. I understood the thing with Kobe calling him a ball hog, and I think that was fair for most of the seasons in his career. I don't get it for LeBron though. I like obviously he stuffs the stat sheet, and when it comes down to the wire, LeBron James has the ball in his hand because he's the one who finishes games. With this Lakers team, it has been different when Anthony Davis is playing because LeBron has shown that he trusts Anthony Davis in those moments. But for most of his career, LeBron is like what kind of defines him and makes him one of the main arguments for why people who think LeBron is better than Michael Jordan as far as the GOAT, which I think is kind of a waste. Like that argument isn't worth making over who's the GOAT because it's like you'll never be able to conclude it. Like, but one of the main arguments that people make there is LeBron James' court vision and his passing ability, and so I wouldn't call LeBron James a ball hog. There are some times that I see him make some cool passes, and his teammates just weren't ready to catch the ball. They weren't expecting it, so I don't know what's going on there. But also, that is an interesting debate with at LeBron's age. If the Jazz had a chance to sign him, which obviously would be for a max contract, would it be worth it? That would be an interesting thing. I don't think he would fit with where the Jazz are going right now, but then again, LeBron James is LeBron James, so that would be kind of a fun conversation to have. Dante May says, I also think the Jazz pledging a 4-year scholarship for every win is helping motivate a lot. Amazing start for a first-year owner. Salute, Ryan Smith. Yeah, that was awesome. Like I kind of forgot about that for a little bit, and then I realized Like, I wonder if that is some sort of motivation for the players. I know I don't think, like, if that didn't happen, like, the Jazz wouldn't be where they were, but I can see, like, a lot of, like, those scholarships, especially to who the scholarships are going towards, probably means a lot to a lot of these players, like Donovan Mitchell. I know he's been, I know he's, like, super on board with all this, so I wonder if after every win, if that's something that they actually think about or talk about. That'd be kinda curious, but I know it's awesome, and hopefully hopefully they win a lot more games because not only can the Jazz lock up the first seed, but that many more scholarships. Nate says, "LeBron is anything but a ball hog. He makes every team he goes to better." Yeah, so it's kind of my statement summed up. I can see how, because, like, the biggest moments when the lights are on, and if you haven't watched the full game and you just see, like, the last 3 minutes, I can totally see how a perception of ball hog could be made if you're just seeing those moments, because throughout his career, his usage rate in those moments have been, like, he's taken most of the shots, especially on, like, all of his years with the Cavs, and most, like, his later years with the Heat. His first year or two with the Heat wasn't so much that way. Probably more because Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade were more superstar caliber players than they were during the later years of the Heat. Um, yeah, so then Sawyer says, like, so kind of with that conversation of would you take the Jazz? Sawyer's probably a hard no. I bet we could talk you into it if it was a cheaper contract. Um, like, if you could get LeBron James on a $15 million contract, I think any team would be crazy to say no to that. Um, let's see. So Weston says that he says, I'm actually scared to play the Trailblazers in Lillard. Lillard has been crazy this year, and I felt like there's a week, like a week or two ago, that just all the media was talking about how Damian Lillard has been underappreciated, and you got lots of good Stephen A. Smith rants out of that. Um, Lillard is insane. He's been insane for multiple years. I don't know if anyone's underrating him, so I kind of got bored of all those videos coming out. But Lillard's a good player. He has a pretty good team around him, but, like, I feel like how the Jazz are built, I'm not too worried about the Trailblazers. You may see Damian Lillard go off for 50 points, but as long as the Jazz get a win, I'm happy. Um, at the same time, though, Lillard is good enough. Like you saw him in the bubble last year, and there were people talking like, "Oh, can this Trailblazers team actually beat the Lakers?" And then they won the first game, and then they lost the next four. But uh, I think that's a fair. It's not like, I think it's fair to be a little worried about playing the Trailblazers, especially in the playoffs. Because 2 years ago they made it to the Western Conference Finals, and Lillard is insane, especially in clutch moments. I do think that the Jazz are good enough that they can overcome anything the Blazers send them. So I'm not overly worried about that. And it scrolled me way to the bottom again. Let me find my spot. CDC says Farmington is the best city in Utah. I kind of lived in Farmington for a little bit. When I moved to Utah, so my family, we lived in Tennessee for a little bit, and then we moved to Utah, and I lived in Kaysville, but my house was, like, literally on the border between Farmington and Kaysville, and I went to school in Farmington. So I guess I can't disagree. I like Farmington. It's nice. So Lakers didn't have Anthony Davis or Schroeder, but the Jazz definitely proved themselves some more. Glad it was a blowout because we all know if the Lakers made it close, people would use the AD excuse. And like, with how much better the Jazz looked than the Lakers, it's like, and we can go into it how big of an impact Anthony Davis would have made in this game. And obviously, if he was playing, it would be a much different game. Both teams would be playing different strategies. The Lakers would look more energized, but like with how much better the Jazz looked than the Lakers, it's hard to make an AD excuse for this game, even though I just kind of made it. But yeah, totally agree there. Weston says we should do a Zoom thing and I'll discuss the Jazz. Cool thought. I'll think about it. But yeah, we'll figure something out. Like one thing Nate and we do talk about almost every week is we try to figure out a way to make this more interactive, more fun. Because one of our main goals with this channel is to build a like fun place for Utah Jazz fans to come talk about basketball and Utah Jazz. So we're looking into more ways that we can communicate throughout the week or do more interactive stuff like that. So good idea. We'll look into it. And it's just sometimes the stuff is tough to organize and tough to make it like a good quality experience because a Zoom call could just go crazy if it's not organized well. But yeah, so we'll be thinking about that stuff and we'll let you guys know if you're interested in that. Let's see. Well, watch them give us credit after we win this championship. No, like after the Jazz win the championship, they'll still have some sort of excuse that it's actually Kawhi Leonard's fault for not going to the Lakers, and that's why the Lakers didn't win the championship. So yeah, the Jazz aren't ever getting credit, even if they do win a championship. Oh, I'm sorry. Leo says I'm a very bland commentator. And I should work on being more lively. So, yeah, I guess that's it. That's just me though. I'll work on it. I'll try to make this more fun. So Nate says there's no one that I could definitely kick off the Western Conference All-Star team for Conley, but there are multiple on the East that aren't nearly as deserving as Mike. And that's a tough part, because there's other players in the West who I would almost give the Western Conference. Like, if there's one more spot, it would even be hard to argue that Mike Conley is the player to go in there because there's so many other talented players who got snubbed this year. I just really hope he makes it. LeBron has a -20 on the floor, worst minus for both teams in the game. Yeah, and plus minus, I love the stat, but it's also one of the things that you have to dig into to really like understand why it happened. That's one thing that I like about kind of going over the stats in basketball is knowing what happened and why it happened. And plus minus is a tough one to really figure out because a lot of times you'll see a player with a great game with the worst minus just because they were on the floor against the other team when they were scoring the most points. And LeBron James is playing against the Jazz when they have their best players out. So that's kind of what was going on there, would be my guess. At the same time, though, it's not like LeBron James had a great game, so I'm not going to defend him too hard on that one either. He obviously he scored under 20 points. He didn't get his 5 rebounds or 5 assists. He was under 5 for both of those. So yeah, I'm like that's another one you can read into. Sorry, asked me who is my least favorite NBA players. Like James Harden has been like it's tough because I think James Harden is an amazing basketball player, and I hope it's in the cards at some point in his career to win a championship. Just because I think he's like, if he doesn't, he'll just end up like a Charles Barkley, where he's an amazing player, and it's just a shame that he didn't get a ring. At the same time, though, I don't want him winning one, especially since it looks like the Jazz could be contenders for the next few years, and him winning one could mean that it wasn't the Jazz, like the Jazz miss out, or it potentially he could beat the Jazz in the finals. So I'm not a fan of James Harden. And then like I'm kind of neutral on those stars I'm either neutral or I like them. There are some role players that I feel like I would love them if they were on a team I rooted for, but I hate them when they're not. So players like Montrezl Harrell, um, I I don't know. He just irks me whenever. So he kind of fit with the Clippers team last year, where they always had that like enforcer kind of attitude. So I don't know. Maybe Montrezl Harrell is my least favorite. I don't like the style. I don't like the style of play. Um, where they play like the Bad Boys Pistons from the late '80s and early '90s. Weston asked me, "Have I seen The Last Dance?" I've seen over half of it. I haven't. I actually haven't seen the end part. Um, there's I don't know what goes on in my head, but whenever I start a series, there always comes a point where I just get bored of it in the middle, and then I wait a few months, and then I come back and finish it. So I'm sure I'll finish it one of these days. Sorry says the owner of the Jazz is my friend's uncle. That's awesome. Um, yeah, that's pretty cool. He's a cool guy from what I hear. I've never met him, but he has a cool company and he has a cool story. So that's pretty neat. Um, Matthew KB, he says LeBron looked like he did in Cleveland when he wanted out. He did not look happy. I would not want LeBron on the Jazz. I would rather the team win a championship how they are. I agree with that. Like I think this team has what it takes to win a championship. And if you play LeBron, you kind of have to rework the system. And honestly, though, adding LeBron to any team, he makes them better. At the same time, though, I would rather see the Jazz bring home a championship with this team that they have right now than with like this team plus LeBron. I feel like it makes a better story, and it feels better as a fan to see the Jazz build up and have players that they well, actually they didn't draft Gobert or Mitchell, but they got them for their rookie years and helped develop them into a championship roster. So yeah, I partially agree. I partially agree there. And scrolling back down to the bottom again. And then Matthew KB also says the Lakers this year are not as good as they were last year. Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, like I don't think they took a huge step down. They still have their star players, and they also got some decent players in the offseason like Montrezl Harrell and Marcus Gasol, who I think they can be difference makers in playoff series just because of some of their skill sets. At the same time, though, they lost a lot of talent. Dwight Howard did awesome for them last year. Rajon Rondo did awesome for them last year. So, and just kind of how everything worked out, and with how much money they gave to Kuzma, which I don't think was a good deal. I think they overall took a step back. That step back, though, is a small step back, and a small enough step back that they're still probably most everyone's favorites to win the finals. So they're still a really good team when healthy. Cool. Lots of conversation going, but no like real comments or anything. Booker. So Matthew again. Booker over Conley on the All-Star doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It doesn't. If you look at the advanced stats, Conley makes sense as an All-Star, and I think Conley is an All-Star level player. If you look at just the overall what fans would want to see, I think Booker is a more exciting player to see in an All-Star game. His stats are obviously better than Conley's as far as the stats that fans really care about seeing. So, like the argument is really between advanced analytics and what like the advanced analytics versus what's exciting for fans to see. Would be the argument of Booker versus Conley for the All-Star team. Carter says that I'm an awesome commentator. Don't ever change. I'll try not to change a ton, but I'll try to make small improvements over time. Um, if you heard me, I I've only been doing live streams not very long, but if like you heard Nate and I, and I guess you can, or it's on our podcast if you want to go check out our podcast. It's not on the YouTube channel though. Like our first few episodes, um, it was definitely pretty rough. Also, we didn't know how to record um, good audio quality at that point, and so that's also fun to listen back on if you ever want to. Um, let's see. Um, so how does Booker's numbers down with CP3 and he still get the All-Star snub over Conley? I don't know. Like I'm like you may disagree with me, but I'm still a proponent. I'd be a proponent of going back to the old school way of selecting All-Stars where it's just like 100% fan vote. I'd be fine with that. And then and like I guess problems with that would be like if that were to have happened this year, Klay Thompson would have been an all-star. Um, and so I'd say like the NBA has some control over that where if there's a player who's played less than half of the games in the season or is unlikely to be healthy for the all-star game or have some sort of communication with the teams in order to disqualify a player, something like that. I would like to see just 100% fan vote. The downside of that is you might see Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert getting snubbed a lot more often than they really should. But I don't know. You can talk about that. That kind like I feel like the All-Star game is more just like try to build the most exciting roster and let the fans decide who the most exciting roster is. And with how many if you avoid injured players and with how many fans are voting, you'll typically get probably pretty close to who the All-Stars should be. And then you'll probably also get a couple meme picks like you might get Taco Fall in there one year. But if that's what the fans want, then that's what the fans should get, in my opinion. The Last Dance is great, except I'm a Jazz fan, so I cried. That's yeah, like right after the Last Dance, like after it came out, Nate was telling me he just didn't want to talk about Michael Jordan because it felt like the whole NBA world was just rubbing 97 and 98 in Utah's face. Sorry says, so like if we won with LeBron, everyone would say LeBron did it all and brought a championship. Yeah. I think that's a really fair point. That's probably my favorite point for a reason why the Jazz shouldn't get LeBron is just for the narrative purposes. Because if LeBron brings the title to Utah, LeBron's the hero. LeBron did it. He carried the team on his back. But if Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert bring a championship to Utah, the story is how they worked as a team. The story is how Quinn Snyder is a great coach. How Donovan Mitchell like worked to improve his game. How Conley came back. So I feel like the story is giving the yeah. So I agree with that. Yeah, if LeBron was here, the people who deserve credit wouldn't get the credit they deserved. Nate says ESPN releasing The Last Dance when they did was penance for the Jazz being the team that shut down the league. I guess that's fair, except for I don't think the Jazz did it. I think Rudy Gobert did it. I like it though. I feel like we could make that into a meme, get that blowing up. Yeah, if one of you wants to make a meme with that, do it and send it to us. We'll use it as a thumbnail or something. Weston says he wants Neaters, and then we got 2 questions of what's my favorite restaurant. Okay, my favorite restaurant I have not been to in forever, and I think there's only like 2 or 3 of them. But it's so like I know there's one in Missouri and there's one in Arkansas. And so like it's probably weird that it's my favorite restaurant because I've only been to it a couple times. And if I went back there, I might change my mind that it's not my favorite restaurant because I haven't had it in forever. So I don't actually remember how the food tastes. But it's called Lambert's, and it's just kind of a fun country food environment. They give you all the foods that are not good for you but taste amazing. But kind of what makes them unique is they've crowned themselves the home of the flying rolls. And this is totally not jazz related, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. But when you eat, like they'll bring out a cart of rolls, and if you want a roll, you just raise your hand and they'll throw it to you just like a baseball. And if they miss, like everyone laughs and like, okay, great, and they'll just throw you another one. So it's kind of a fun environment, and kind of reminds me of my childhood because I used to go there on family road trips when we visited places in those areas. Um, Katie does not deserve to be a captain this season. Um, I'm I kind of agree. At the same time, though, I don't know who else I would pick as the captain for the East. Maybe Joel Embiid. He's kind of a popular one. I think it makes sense that Giannis isn't because he has been for the past 2, maybe more years. But I'll agree with you that KD doesn't deserve it. At the same time, I don't know who would replace him, so it's kind of a soft agree there. Let's see, and then yeah, Nate has a follow up question. Who would you choose from the East? Sorry, this is not KD. Let's see. Hey Nate, talk about Michael Jordan. Maybe next time Nate's on here, he can give you his rant about how it was annoying to have The Last Dance on there. If you guys bring it up, I'm sure I'll talk about it. Sawyer says Damian Lillard, Kyrie. Or he also says before that he feels that the coaches should be the team captains for All Stars. That would be cool. I would enjoy that. I think that would be kind of fun. At the same time, I don't think. I feel like the NBA is selling and this is from a business perspective, but they're selling more of the player personalities, and those are the most fans care more about the players and that side of things than they do about the coaches. So I don't think the NBA would do that. I think it would be kind of fun to see. And then as far as Damian Lillard or Kyrie, Damian Lillard's in the West. I do think he should have been a starter over Luka. But he wouldn't qualify for the East one. And I feel like Kevin Durant deserves it more than Kyrie this year. Just because I guess they both missed time. Kyrie missed some time due to personal reasons. KD was forced to sit out because of COVID protocol. So Jello asks, what would my ideal Western seeding for the playoffs like? So obviously Jazz number 1, and I want the Lakers and the Clippers to be 2 and 3. I don't want either of them to drop below 3, as long as the Jazz stick at number 1, because that way we don't have to play. We only have to play one of them at most. Past that, so like, I don't know. There's a lot of teams that can make the playoffs. So thinking about it, like teams who would make the playoffs, we're probably going to see the Nuggets in there, and so we have 5 teams. So we'll probably see the Nuggets. I'm guessing with how Steph is playing, we're probably going to be seeing the Warriors. We'll probably see the Trailblazers. I'm guessing the Mavericks will make it in there. They're kind of on the fringe right now, so like they might drop out. And I'm just going to go top 8, even though I know top 10 teams this year gets to go play in. I'll actually have to pull up the standings to think about the teams that I have for that number 8. But I don't know. I would like to see. I feel like the Trailblazers are going to have a tough time, so it's kind of not realistic to have them higher than 7 at this point. I don't know. It'd be cool to see I feel like the Jazz would match up well with the Warriors this year. So if the Warriors could be 8, that would work. And then in that case, they're going to be playing the winner of the 4-5 matchup. I don't think the Warriors will be at 8 though. I don't know. I'm really happy with. I think the Jazz can beat anyone. So just if they get first, I just don't want them playing one of the LA teams until the conference finals. Let's see. Oh, and the Spurs are a playoff team right now. I remember seeing that, and that kind of surprised me. So, yeah, if the Spurs could be 8 and like 4 and 5. Oh, and I forgot about the Suns as well. The Suns are looking good. I kind of hope they drop out so that, or if they do, or just drop down to like 6 or 7 so the Jets don't have to play them. So yeah, maybe Spurs at 8, and then like Nuggets and Blazers at 4 and 5, and then the Jazz would hopefully play the Spurs first round. Hopefully I'd rather than play the Nuggets, but either Nuggets, Blazers second round, and this is more realistic. And then last round play whoever makes it to the conference finals, probably between the Clippers and Lakers before the finals. Story says LeBron should also not be a captain and should give someone else the opportunity. I know it is kind of boring to see the same player over and over be selected as the captain. And I think part of the reason, because captains are just fan vote, and LeBron is the most recognizable name. So I bet most fans, when they're thinking, okay, who are the 5 best players in the West, LeBron is probably one of the first names to come to mind. And on top of that, there's the narrative of what is he in? He was drafted 2000, so he's in his like 17th, 18th season, and he's still playing as great as he is. So I feel like people almost boost how good he is, like because he is playing great this season. But I feel like they boost it a little further just because of how long he's been in the NBA. Jealous says that he would hate to see the Nuggets early. I don't know. Obviously the Nuggets beat us. To be fair though, the Nuggets had a like one of the greatest shooting nights in NBA history. I think that the Jazz have what it takes to beat the Nuggets. The Nuggets are an obviously worse team than they were last year. Like they're the 7th seed right now. The past few, like they've lost some key pieces. That's rough for them. It would also be fun to see the Nuggets and Jazz play, to see the Jazz beat them. Obviously, there is a risk there because, well, in the playoffs, there's going to be a risk no matter who you play because they're all good teams. They're playoff caliber teams, obviously. But I think the Jazz would have the Nuggets number if they were to play a 7-game series this year, assuming everyone's healthy. And why would you rather see the Nuggets over the Blazers? They always give us a problem like the Rockets do. I just like the Nuggets. I feel like they are a little bit more of a full team than the Blazers. But when it comes to a 7-game series, I feel like the Jazz are the most complete team in the NBA. So when it comes to that, I feel like the Jazz can beat up the Nuggets' depth, and they can definitely beat up the Blazers' depth. But when it comes down to a 7-game series, do I want to trust? Would I rather have the opposing team have Damian Lillard or Nikola Jokic? And obviously, I'd rather them have neither. But I'd rather be facing my team be facing Nikola Jokic than Damian Lillard. So I think that's kind of why I gave the edge to me wanting to play the Nuggets over the Blazers. Weston says, I want to see LeBron not be an all-star. I don't know if that'll happen. I guess it just depends on when LeBron chooses to call it quits. Because he has been slowing down just very slowly. So if he decides to play 5 more years, which he totally could, and he'd still be an excellent player, his last 2 years might not be an all-star. Cool. And it looks like we made it down to the end of the chat. I will just kind of waste some time here for about 20 seconds or so in case any of you have any extra comments or questions. But we've been on here for an hour and 5 minutes, which I think is the longest time we've been on a live chat or a live stream, which is awesome. Thank you guys for keeping the live chat going on. This has been a ton of fun. And the more people who are here and the more people who are like commenting, the more fun this is. So make sure that you, yeah, like share this channel with your friends if you have jazz friends who, if you have jazz friends who watch or jazz fans who are friends who watch content on YouTube, specifically basketball content, like share this with them. We'd love to build more people. And like I said, Nate and I have been thinking more ways to engage you and kind of build that better community. And the more people we have, the easier it is to do more cool stuff with that. So we'll let you know. We have a couple ideas. So as we think about them, we'll probably kind of test the ideas and see what you guys think about them here on the live chat. So make sure that you tune in, so that you can hear about those ideas, give us your feedback, and then we can see what you want to do, and we can kind of do that. So looks like a lot of wrapping up. Sorry, did say, oh yeah, so sorry, saying tell people about Called Bank. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And even if they don't subscribe, if they just come and join us for these live streams, that's one of the most fun parts about this channel for me, and I'm guessing the ones who tune in, I'm guessing you guys enjoy it as well. But thank you so much for joining me tonight. That was an awesome win by the Jazz. We blew out the Lakers, which was really awesome to see because we've kind of been hyping up this game for a long time. So thank you so much for joining us. Have an awesome night. I forget who the Jazz play next, but make sure you join us for the next game. Nate should be taking care of that one. So yeah, like I'm excited to see where this goes. We should be having more fun, especially as the Jazz keep winning games. So yeah, thank you again.